Hello. I had several people ask on a journal that I showed how I made the charm and the different pieces to the charm tassel that goes on the side of the journal. And these are really easy, but there's a lot of different pieces to them, so I thought I'd just do a little tutorial on how I put these together. So you're gonna need several different things from the craft supply store. I usually find these in the jewelry making section. These are, I think, bead caps, but they would be for really large size beads, but I use them for these tassels as just a finish on the top of it. So you'll need a pack of these. You will need some jump rings, which are just I think they also call them split rings. You will need what they call the lobster clasps. You'll need one of those. I get, like a medium size one. These, if you want to make a charm with an image in it, I think they're called bezels, circle bezels. These are a 1-inch size. And then where you find these, you can also find these glass circles. Actually looks like I got the wrong kind here, but because those look like they're more dome shaped, you could use them. But I also have these that I usually use, and they're more flat. So that's probably what I'm going to use for this project, but they look very similar to this. Have to figure out what I can do with those. That's how we end up with as much stuff as what we do. Just accumulates. I usually also add a little length of chain to mine, so you'll want a piece of that, and then I add charms to that, but you can get around that if you don't want to go with the extent of adding a chain. And I'll show you a little bit on that. You will need scraps of fabric, lace, different kinds of trims that you want to put in it, and you'll want to cut them about double the length that you want for your tassel, because you're going to fold them over. And then you will also need some sort of decorative ribbon or something similar that is pretty thin, because you're going to use that to attach everything together, and it'll have to go through one of these holes. So that's pretty much everything that you'll need. You'll also need some glue, probably some sort of jewelry pliers if you have those, and that's about it. So to start out, I just take and find out, what I'm working on right now is a kind of a beach theme journal. So mine is going to have those sorts of colors in mine. And what I do is I just gather up all of my different fabrics and ribbons, and I kind of alternate them a little bit just to give it a little bit of variation, and they're not all the same thing clumped together. And you can adjust the length when you're done if you need to trim a little bit, and the length is going to kind of be a personal preference, so I don't really have any specific measurement on that. It's probably going to have a lot to do with the height of your journal if you're hanging it on the side, that sort of thing. And so you just start layering all these on here and get them roughly in the center is where you want to hold on to these. Okay. Now you'll see I've got one of these thin ones that's a little bit longer and one that's a little bit shorter, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But you're going to take the longer one and put it underneath all of these so that it kind of holds these up there. And this is usually where I add in thread on one of these length of chain. And then add one of these on. And typically what I do is I use a 1-inch image, and if I have a circle punch, I will just punch a 1-inch image and put in there. Thought I was more prepared. So I have one of those that I'm using here. And what I do is just put a little dab of glue. I usually let that set up a little bit, and then I will put this, these are self-adhesive, they just peel off, and you put it on over that, and I'll usually let this set a little bit, just to make sure it's good and dry before I put that on there. And then I take the shorter one, because this is not going to hang down very far, and thread that ribbon through there. You could also just, you know, attach this with a clasp to your chain, or you can tie it onto one of these ribbons. It doesn't have to be, you know, the thin one. That's just what I chose for this one. And then I put that on this side. Okay. So we have our charm here, which will have a clear coat over that of this. And then we've got the chain that will add some charms to. And we have all of our fabrics and laces and trims. And then what I'm going to do is, even that up a little bit, tie this just in a knot. So it holds everything together. And then we take these caps. I think I'll use the copper one because it matches the color that I have here, and it kind of goes with the beach theme that I have going on. Okay, and then I'm only going to take one strand, one side of this ribbon, and thread that through. And then I'm going to take this jump ring, and it's going to go through there and then back over and through this cap so that this is threaded through that loop. And we'll pull this tight here in a minute and get that all situated. So we find the other end of this ribbon. Just trying to get these straightened out a little bit so that they're not so. Okay. And then we can tie that in another knot. You want it fairly tight if you can, that way you have less play up there at the top. But if you have a little bit, like this one has a little bit more room, that's okay. I mean, it's just gonna give it a little more color right there at the end. Okay, so that is tied in there now, and then you want to find your split on this jump ring. And if you've not done these before, you don't want to pull apart like that. You want to turn it. That way it keeps the shape of the circle as best as you can. You're going to slip this lobster clasp in there. Give it a turn again. Make sure that's good and tight. And that's going to be the part that you clip onto either a ring on the spine of your journal, or you know, if you have like a traveler's notebook and you've got the elastic binding on the side, you can clip them there. Basically anywhere you would want to clip this onto your journal if you've got a way to fasten it on there. Go ahead and put one of these on here now and you can see what that looks like. Just a really thin disc. This part's a little bit, I don't know, it's not completely flat. It's got a little bit of a bevel to it, I guess. But this other side is adhesive, and so you can just pop that down in there. Just gives it a nice finished look, and it kind of protects that image a little bit. And then what I would normally do is add some other charms, kind of fit with the theme of whatever journal I'm making. So I have these with some shells and a ship's wheel, and it already came with a jump ring on there. And I can find some of them are really hard though. That one's hard to open, so I'm gonna grab one of my others. These are a lot easier to work with. I'm just gonna use that ring that's on there and attach it like that. Pick a length to thread that through. That one's on there, and then I have another one. It's kind of a coral color. I thought that went really well. And I'm gonna add one of my rings to it as well. Kind of put it down here toward the bottom. And then close that up. And that's it. So you've got your charms, and I may end up moving that up a little bit more because they're kind of hanging right even with each other, and I like to kind of alternate them a little bit, so I may end up moving something up a little bit higher, but gives you the idea anyway. And get all your ribbons and laces and everything is attached and hidden underneath this bead cap. So that's it. That's all there is to it. There's just a lot of pieces and a lot of different things to look for when you go to the craft store. So I just wanted to come on here and show all the different things that go into them. Thanks for watching. Bye.